Arsenal take on PSV Eindhoven in the second leg of their UEFA Champions League round of 16 tie. Pretty strange situation going into the game for the Gunners. They're already 7-1 up, 1 foot, if not 1.5 feet through to the quarter-final where they'll meet either Real Madrid or Atletico. I've just got back from London Colney. We've heard from Mikel Arteta, from William Saliba, and we've observed the beginning of the training session. Lots to get into as we build up to tomorrow's game. Focus on what William Saliba's had to say, in particular about his future, pick our 11, and respond to some comments made by a lousy pundit. I think I can say that. Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast with me, your host, Harry Symeou. Happy Tuesday to you all. Hope you're all having a wonderful day so far. If you're listening to this on Wednesday in the lead up to the big game, then happy Wednesday to you guys as well. It's really nice, isn't it? Going into a second leg of a Champions League tie, not really feeling any jeopardy. Like when you consider how we were feeling around the kind of Porto game last season, this is the complete opposite of that. This is the complete opposite in terms of, we know we're through, it's done. And I'm honestly the last person to sit there and take something like that for granted. But when you're 7-1 up, which we are, I mean, I'd look a bit foolish if I sat here and tried to talk up PSV Eindhoven's chances of springing a surprise and making it through to the next round. So, look, going to be a strange game. I'd imagine there's going to be quite a strange atmosphere at Emirates Stadium as well, because just sort of observing what I have online, looking at some of the exchanges on X and looking at some of you guys' screenshots regarding the ticket exchange. I'm not sure what type of crowd we're going to get. I'm not sure how many are going to turn up to Emirates Stadium tomorrow night. Look, I would say get down there and show some support. Now, where I will have some sympathy with a lot of supporters that decide, maybe tomorrow's one that they're going to take off and they're going to stay away, is the fact that the price of the ticket, quite frankly, is a little bit over the top. I think when we talked about season tickets, I talked about the £72 price that I've paid for a ticket for this game as being too much, in my opinion. I felt like this is a game that is worthy of being maybe a category B rather than a category A. What I won't do is complain about the price with hindsight, because what I think a lot of people have done is gone, well, we're basically through, and so to pay £72 for a game like this is ridiculous. I say £72 because that was the price of my ticket. I know that some of them vary, but that's why I'm referencing that particular figure. I know some people will look at it and go, well, that game's not worth that because, it's a dead rubber essentially. But obviously the club weren't to know that we were going to go and win by 7-1 in the away leg when the pricing was put into place and when those tickets were sold. So it's easier to moan about it with hindsight. I mean, I'll moan about it anyway, because as I say, I feel like it was a category B game really rather than a category A. But hey, I don't make the categories. Anyway, what we're doing on this pod, we're going to reflect on Arteta's press conference. We're going to reflect on what William Saliba's had to say. We're going to talk a little bit about who I'd prefer to see us face in the next round, Real Madrid or Atletico Madrid. Either way, very, very difficult opponents. We're going to try and put together an Arsenal 11 that we think should start. Take some of your questions and thoughts from the live chat. And at the end, we'll wrap up with a prediction. If I could just ask, if you haven't done so already and you're with us on YouTube, please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new. That really, really does help. If you're listening on audio, make sure you're subscribed on your preferred platform and make sure that you leave us a review as well. Should you wish to go one further, you can become a Patreon of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. The link for that is in the description. And if you choose to do that, you get match day reaction pieces on the night of the game. So you'll get something tomorrow night late after the match, in which we'll share some thoughts on how it all panned out and how it went down. Okay, shall we start then with Mikel Arteta's press conference? I think we should. First of all, no new injury news, which is good because, well, depending on how you look at it, it feels good. It's good in the sense of everybody that was available at the weekend is available again. There have been no issues. That was at the time that Mikel sort of provided us with that information. Obviously, the guys were going out to train shortly after the press conference concluded. Fingers crossed, nothing has changed as a result of that session, but no new injury news. And he confirmed that Gabriel Martinelli was available again to play some part. And that is good news, because we really need to start building Gabriel Martinelli back up. And if we can get Bukayo Saka back after the international break, that would be a massive boost as well. I asked Mikel Arteta a couple of questions today in the press conference. The first one I asked him was about whether or not he's already been looking at Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid. And honestly, just before I asked the question, I had a little bit of a wobble, because I expected him to kind of put his guard up and say, well, no, because we are focused on PSV Eindhoven. That's the only thing on our minds, and that's where our head's at. And it wouldn't be professional for me to start looking at the next opponent. But he didn't. He kind of let the guard down a little bit and sort of suggested that he had a look at those two teams. Obviously, he said they're big teams and people know a lot about them anyway. But obviously, because he knew what the path was looking like, it seems that he has been having a little bit of a look at those two sides, as I would argue he's entitled to do, given the position that Arsenal find themselves in this tie with PSV. I also asked him about this period that's upcoming, because after tomorrow, we only play once more this month, which is bonkers when you think about how the schedule's been and how we've struggled with that schedule for such a long time. We've had injuries, we've had people not having the sufficient time to recover, all the rest of it. When you consider all of that, to get to a point at the business end of the season and have just one more game to play in March after tomorrow night is mad, isn't it? And I know we're out of the FA Cup, and obviously that plays a part, but I asked him what he thought about that. Is it something that comes as a kind of welcomed period, or is it something that impacts rhythm and impacts the team's ability to develop that rhythm, and ultimately will it impact their form, sort of thing? And he said, look, well, he didn't really say a great deal on that. To be honest, he talked about the players going out on international duty, and we're going to just have to see what everyone comes back like after that, and then they go again for a kind of final push and a final sort of sprint towards the finish line in all competitions that we're still involved in, whether that be the Champions League, which we're all hoping we can go on and do really, really well in, or the Champions League, or the Premier League, I beg your pardon, where, look, we're not going to win it. I think that's fair to say, but we got to give it a go, and we got to consolidate that second place. Anything less than second would be a massive disappointment in my book. And it's strange that I say that, because there's a part of me that feels quite proud of the fact that despite how far we are behind Liverpool, when you take into consideration all the issues and problems we've had, I'm actually quite proud of the fact that we're still the second best team in the country. Which, look, people will say is me glorifying failure, and that's not what I'm trying to do. I just think we've had a lot of adversity this season. We've had a lot of problems. We've had a lot of issues. And if we finish second, although when you sort of dive into it a little bit deeper and you analyze maybe how many points we've got this season versus this same stage last season, or how many points we're going to end up on versus what we ended up on last season, you're going to say there was a drop-off, and rightly so. But the fact that drop-off occurred, yet we still could finish second, I think is a good thing. Maybe it says a bit about the state of the rest of the league. I don't know if you want to look at it that way, but yeah, I mean, a second place finish and a Champions League semi-final, if we could make it that far, would be a decent enough season, wouldn't it? And I know it's not what we wanted, and I know it's not what we hoped for, and I know there'll be people listening to this screaming, going, "No, it's an absolute failure," blah 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 blah. But I think it would be making the best of a bad situation, and I think that's kind of where we are as a football club this season. We've got to focus now on looking forward, and in terms of the Premier League, and looking at how we can build again for the new season. But while we're in the Champions League, we've got to give it a right old go, and you never know. It's a cup competition. Okay. He was asked questions about Andrea Berta, obviously. The club have not announced anything yet with regards to the Italian. And if you want to have a good listen to something that I think provides a great deal of insight around Andrea Berta and his time at Atletico Madrid in particular. Go over to Tom Canton's The Gooner Talk. He put out a show this morning with Sid Lowe, Spanish football expert. I actually listened to it while I was driving home. I thought it was really, really good. I thought it was really, really good. So yeah, go and have a listen. Go and have a listen. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. We also heard today from a certain William Saliba, who was also put in front of the media today and was asked some very interesting questions. So William Saliba was the player that represented Arsenal today in the sort of media duties. It is in the contract when it comes to Champions League games that it's not just a manager that's put forward, it is a player as well. And there were a few questions asked of William Saliba. The one I asked was about how he's found kind of having to develop a pairing with Jurriën Timber in the absence of Ben White. Because I put it to him that for a long time, people seem to talk about, him and Gabriel as this kind of really good pairing, strong pairing. And the focus is always on that connection. But he'd also developed a really good understanding and connection with Ben White, who was playing to his right for such a long time. He's been out for a while, and Jurriën Timber's come in, and he was full of praise for Jurriën Timber. Said it's as if he's never had an ACL injury. He's been fantastic. He's been really good, and he's really, really kind of enjoyed working with him. Tom Canton asked him a question about his contract. He said, can you say anything that can ease some of the concerns that maybe the fans have about your future? And he was really chilled and really relaxed about it. And I don't think the quotes necessarily, when you read them, do this justice. I think you kind of have to listen to the way he responded to this question. The feeling that you got was one of calm, was one of, happiness in terms of his current kind of feeling at the football club. I don't think he's in a place where he's seriously considering moving on. And I know people keep talking about his contract, and as his contract runs down more and more, that conversation will intensify. Charles Watts later asked him if any talks had begun over his new contract, and he said no. But he said there's still plenty of time to go, and there's no rush. So even though he hasn't said that there are talks ongoing, and listen, there might be, and he just doesn't want to say it publicly, or he's been instructed not to say it publicly, who knows? But the fact that his demeanor was so calm, and the fact that he seemed so driven to win trophies with Arsenal Football Club, I took a lot of encouragement from that. And so I see his comments today as a really, really big boost in terms of that particular situation. He came across great. I think sometimes with footballers, you sort of ask them questions, you get very kind of generic answers. And I think sometimes when you what's the term I'm looking for here? Sometimes when you ask a footballer a question, you can get quite a bland answer back, or you can get an answer back that feels really media trained and really kind of protective and all the rest of it. I don't think we got like huge insight from William Saliba today. Like we kind of got a bit of an idea and an understanding of where he's at on certain topics and certain issues, and in particular, the issue of his future. But I thought his demeanor was really good in that he genuinely seemed relaxed. Like he seemed like he meant what he was saying. And sometimes when someone comes across with quite a nice character and a nice demeanor, you can buy into them and you can quite enjoy a press conference, even when the answers are not massively insightful or sort of really groundbreaking, as I kind of found to be the case today. Okay, that's kind of it from the press conferences. Let's talk a little bit about whether we prefer to play Atleti or Real in the next round, because I think it's fair to say that we're going to be there. Regardless of what happens, a trip to Madrid awaits us. Well, regardless of what happens in their game, because two Madrid clubs are playing each other. And as long as we don't have a kind of self-implosion against PSV tomorrow, which is obviously highly unlikely, but never impossible. You have to say that. And so the question has been put to me quite a bit recently. Who would I prefer to see Arsenal play? And it feels to me like there's a lot of people that obviously look at Real Madrid, look at their pedigree in this competition and go, you want to avoid them at all costs. But equally, there's people that look at Real Madrid and go, well, you know what? At least with Real Madrid, they're going to come out and play us. And when you consider that one of Arsenal's big issues this season has been breaking down low blocks, you can understand why there's fans that look at Real Madrid and think that tie might be better suited to us. What I'm going to say is, for me, that's a load of old nonsense. And listen, everyone's entitled to their opinion. I get where that opinion is born from. I understand why you would think that a side that are going to come on to us are going to give us the spaces that allows us to be effective in attack. Whereas against a side like Atleti, we could probably end up with a lot of the ball, not really create a great deal. And then on the rare occasion, if that's the way the game pans out, that they manage to spring counterattacks and get forward, they actually do have quality in the final third to punish us, and they could kind of be our kryptonite. I get that. I get why the style thing comes into people's thinking. But who the hell backs their team or bets on their team to go to Real Madrid and beat them in the UEFA Champions League? This is their competition. And we're not exactly full of Champions League pedigree as a group and as a club even. So, you know, I think for me, that outweighs the stylistic stuff. And the battle of styles is obviously a thing, and it's a good talking point. And once we know who we're going to be playing, we can put together some analysis and we can have a good in-depth conversation about how we go about breaking them down, about how we go about trying to overcome the challenges that that particular opponent will bring us. But for me, I'm always going to fear Real Madrid more than I fear Atletico Madrid. Having said that, from a purely kind of glamour sort of perspective, obviously Real Madrid is the one you want. Everybody wants to go to the Bernabeu. The Metropolitano is a great place to watch football as well, but it's not the Bernabeu. And I think for a lot of people, going to the Bernabeu is on their bucket list. So, listen, I don't mind who we get. Obviously, I want Arsenal to go as far in the competition as they possibly can. And, you know, the further you get, the more you start to believe that there's a possibility, that there's a chance that you might just get over the line and make it a historic season. But yeah, I would still, if I had to pick who we're going to play in the next round, and I take the style point on board, I'm picking Atletico Madrid because I think Real Madrid have that star quality, or more of that star quality. I think Real Madrid have that aura about them in the competition. And I thought at times against Bayern last season, we looked a little bit naive, and we'd be, I think, a year on and hopefully better in that sense, and more understanding of what's required to progress in these types of ties. But yeah, I can't sit here and say I'd rather play Real Madrid. Like, I just can't. That doesn't come out of my mouth, nor should it, in my opinion. So I think that Atleti would be the better draw. But obviously, if you're after the glamour draw and you're after that kind of once in a lifetime trip for some of us, then Real Madrid is definitely the one. Just before we go on to pick our 11 for the PSV game and share a prediction for it, I did want to address some comments that Jamie Carragher made on Monday Night Football last night. Now, I didn't watch it in full because, quite frankly, the idea of, after what happened on Sunday, sitting there and listening to them all bang on about us, I just couldn't take it. Wasn't interested. I didn't even watch the West Ham Newcastle game. I just wanted a night off from football, and that's exactly what I had. Well, I say that I didn't watch the football match, but I watched Jim Ratcliffe's interview, which you can find some reaction to, by the way, on the Chronicles of a Gooner, on the latest episode of the Named by You. And I always have to get that in before I say it, because I sound really vain if I tell you that there's a show called Symeou Says on the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. You guys named it. You guys insisted that I called it that. So go and check it out. Latest episode of Symeou Says, the last poll on your feed, last video on the channel. On that, we reacted to that Sir Jim Ratcliffe interview. So go and check it out. But yeah, Jamie Carragher says that Arsenal have peaked under Arteta, that we've seen peak Arsenal under Mikel Arteta. Basically saying that there's no chance that Arsenal improve from, obviously not what we've seen this season, but from last season, maybe, or the season before, which I think is a complete load of old codswallop. I mean, Jurgen Klopp, how many years was Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool before they won the league? 6? Was it about 6? So Alex Ferguson took, what, 7 years to win his first title with Manchester United? Like, this idea that you're always going to have instant success and this desire for instant gratification is a real problem in modern football. Because to say that we peaked is to say that everything Mikel Arteta has shown you already, which is that he can improve a team, that he can get up and go again after a difficult finish to a season, means nothing. That's essentially what you're saying. I think he's shown us throughout his managerial career so far, and it's a short managerial career so far, but I think he's shown that he can that he can improve sides, but also that he can recover from setbacks. And his team have been very, very, very consistent over the last 3 seasons. Obviously, that's dropped off this season, and that's partly why we are where we are. But we always talk about the other factors involved, and it's right to mention those when conducting any sort of analysis, or at least take them into consideration. But it's one of those predictions that is purely designed to clickbait. It's purely designed to wind people up. It's purely designed to create interaction. And congratulations, Jamie Carragher, because you've done that, because you've got the whole Arsenal world frustrated by the comments that you've made. And I don't like predictions like that, because you're essentially writing someone off. Now, I think there are other instances in football, and there are other case studies where you can look at someone or something, be it a club or a sporting director or whatever, an individual player. You can look at certain things and you can go, that's not going to work. And those types of predictions, I can take them a bit better, because I think what you're doing is you're looking at something that maybe has been questionable in the past. Like, let's say, for example, if you said that Raheem Sterling is never going to rediscover the form that he showed at Manchester City, then that's a fair prediction to make. And let me explain the difference, okay? Let me explain the difference. The reason I say that is because Raheem Sterling moved to Chelsea and his form declined, played less games. He moves to Arsenal, his form's declined even further, and he's played less games. So what you're seeing with Raheem Sterling is a downward trajectory. And there's no real explanation for Raheem Sterling's downward trajectory, other than he's at that point in his career where he's starting to decline a little bit just naturally. He played a lot of football at a really young age, and maybe just hasn't got the legs, maybe hasn't got the desire, maybe he hasn't got it in him deep down to continue performing at a high level. But there's a body of evidence that you can use to kind of support that prediction of, well, Raheem Sterling's never going to come back to the level that we showed previously. Mikel Arteta's body of work shows the opposite. And that's why I find this prediction really, really frustrating, because he went from 8th to 5th to 2nd with more points. Now, he's going to finish probably 2nd again with less points. So that's a slight decline. But his overall body of work shows more progress and more development and improvement than anything else. It shows us that. That is the overriding theme. Is progress always linear? No. So it's not always going to be that kind of straight line in terms of trajectory. There is going to be those bumps in the road for sure. If Mikel Arteta's Arsenal have a poor season next season, or go 3 months into next season and are already off the pace and are struggling, haven't addressed what they needed to in the summer, and then you make that prediction, I'd kind of go, okay, well, you've got one whole season of evidence that maybe Arsenal have declined, and now going into the new campaign, you're looking around, things don't look right. Fine, make that prediction. You can question or not whether you think Arsenal will ever get back to the level that they showed, in that case, 2 seasons prior. For me, his body of work has shown progress. And if there's one anomaly, which is this season, that wouldn't prompt me to write them off in terms of their ability to kind of recover and go again, when they've shown you that they can do that already. So I didn't really like that prediction from Jamie Carragher. I thought it was a load of old codswallop. And so I thought it was worth just mentioning, because I've seen some Arsenal fans online agreeing with it. What's the matter with you people? Anyway, let's move on to pick at 11 for the game against PSV Eindhoven on Wednesday night. I'm looking forward to getting down there and being back in the North Bank for the first time in a long time. I think I've only sat there once so far this season. So this is going to be my second game. And a massive shout out to Dan as well, who isn't able to attend the game, but gave me a shout. And I'm now able to take my little boy to come and sit next to me in the North Bank, which is great. Really, really looking forward to to the experience and to taking him along to another game. He's slowly sort of building them up and he's really enjoying them. So, yeah, looking forward to that. Not sure the 8 p.m. kickoff works great for me, but have I even told his mum that it's an 8 p.m. kickoff yet? Probably not. Anyway, let's get into starting 11 then for the PSV game. Let's have a look at what I would go with, and you can feel free to rip it apart in the live chat. Okay, so let's take a look at what I've decided to go with for tomorrow night's game. Raya in goal. There is the option of Neto. Will we see that? I'm always wary of making too many changes. I know we've got a game coming up at the weekend against Chelsea, which I think could be a tricky game. And maybe there'll be a temptation on Arteta's part to sort of rotate a little bit more than maybe some of us would like. But I would stick with Raya in goal. I would start Ben White at right back. I think he could really do with the minutes. I know he hasn't got a lot in the tank in terms of minutes because, yes, he's come on as a sub since returning, but for very short periods of time. So, has he got 45 minutes in him? Has he got 60 minutes in him? If he has, I would start him. My two centre backs would be Jakub Kivior and Gabriel. I'd give Saliba the breather. I think he could do with it. And at left back, I'd play Kieran Tierney. Why not? Why not? He's been a pretty decent servant. He's come on in a few sort of recent matches as a sort of makeshift left winger at times, sometimes as a second left back. And so, yeah, I'd give him a go. My midfield trio would be Jorginho at the base. I'd play Martin Odegaard because I think he needs to play his way back into form. And I'd play Alexander Zinchenko as the left 8. This Zinchenko thing at left 8 is really baffling to me because for such a long time, we all sort of suggested that could be an option when we were talking about a lack of creativity in that position. For ages, like so many of us were sort of saying, why not give Zinni a go? He's played there for Ukraine. He plays there regularly when he's on international duty. Why not give him a go? And there's always been this reluctance to do that. However, in recent weeks, we've seen him come on and play in that position on a few occasions. So midfield trio for me, Jorginho at the base, Zinchenko and Odegaard. And then my forward line, I'm going to push Leandro Trossard into the centre forward position. I think Mikel Merino could do with a bit of a rest and a bit of a breather because for me, he's doing a lot of work, covering a lot of ground at the moment. And then I'm going to put Martinelli on the right because I think he could do with some minutes to build himself up. Again, it would be a view to him playing like maybe 60 minutes. Now that I'm thinking about this, would you play White and Martinelli on the same side given sort of where their fitness levels are at the moment? Maybe not. But I'd like to see Martinelli start. I want to take Ethan Nwaneri out of the firing line. That's a big part of this for me because I didn't think he was very good against Manchester United, and I think he could do with a breather with a view to coming back into the side for Chelsea. Sterling on the left, and then Trossard through the middle. You might be thinking, Sterling, what on earth are you talking about? Why is Raheem Sterling in your team? I mean, if he can't play in this game, when the hell is he going to play? Is kind of my sort of base level analysis around this whole thing. But look, I think there needs to be rotation. I think there needs to be changes. I think there's a few players that I would protect going into the weekend's game. And obviously, the other thing that you got to factor in is as well the international breaks coming up. And if I think that I've got a player whose workload is just a little bit too high at the moment and who is going to go on international duty and likely play a lot of football or has a long journey or whatever, I would think about taking them out of the firing line against PSV so that I'm not risking them on international duty by sending them off to their national teams with that kind of heavy load on their shoulders, which can potentially lead to injuries, as we've seen in the past. So, yeah, I think you've got to look at the bigger picture right now, and it's very difficult to do that because obviously as a manager, you want to prioritize your games, your results. But I think we've earned the luxury to be able to do that because of how commanding our lead is over PSV Eindhoven. So that's my team. Raya in goal, White, Kivior, Gabriel, and Tierney across the back. Jorginho, Odegaard, and Zinchenko will be my midfield trio with Sterling, Martinelli, and Trossard in attack. Okay, then. What are we doing next? I think. What are we doing next? Prediction. Let's do some predictions. Okay, I am going to say Arsenal 1. No, actually, how can I say that? The PSV is so open. Arsenal 3, PSV 1. That's my prediction. Let's see. Let's see how that goes. Let's see how that goes. Someone in the chat saying, what's the boost? Talking about William Saliba. You must have joined the stream a little bit late, but just to summarize before I go off and put my feet up for the day. What's the boost? William Saliba says he's very happy at Arsenal, isn't concerned about his contract situation at the moment. And yeah, he wants to win trophies with the Arsenal. He's speaking really, really positively about the team, about his kind of ambitions and what he wants to achieve with the club. And there was one line where he said something along the lines of, if you don't win trophies here, you'll end up just being forgotten by the fans. And he doesn't want to be that. And he was also, another thing that I should have mentioned a little bit earlier on, he was really kind of self-critical about his performances this season. I don't think he's been as good this season as he was last season. I think Gabriel's been the standout centre half in that kind of pair in this campaign. I think that's clear for everyone to see. But he's still been at a very, very good level. And at his young age, and he is still very young, I think people forget how young William Saliba is. There's always going to be room for improvement. There's always going to be ups and downs. But the fact that he's quite self-aware, I like that, because it means that he's always thinking about how he can get better. Obviously, there's a line. You don't want to start beating yourself up to the point where you start overthinking things, making mistakes, etc., etc. But the fact that he was so kind of self-aware of his own performances, nobody asked him really about his performances. He was asked what he can improve on, or what he feels he can improve on, in order to get up to that really kind of elite level that he believes, he's not far away from. But he kind of volunteered the information himself that actually he doesn't think he's had a particularly good season. But yeah, Arsenal taking on PSV. Make sure you're subscribed to the Chronicles of Iguna. Make sure you leave a like on the video. Make sure you subscribe to us if you're listening on audio. And you can check us out on patreon.com as well. The post-match pod will be available to you guys on Thursday morning. It won't be late on Wednesday night. As I say, I'm going with the boys, so going to make an evening of it, go and enjoy ourselves. But you will get the match day reaction bit over on Patreon, while you get some post-match thoughts as soon as I get in the front door. I'm not going to be in the press area, so I won't be able to upload it from the stadium before I leave. I can record it from the stadium before I leave, but there'll probably be a sort of 30-40 minute delay while I'm traveling home. But yeah, thanks so much for all the support as always. Like, subscribe, all the rest of it, and I'll see you all on the next one. Until then, take care of yourselves and have a great day. Up the Arsenal. Good.